as adults, it's almost like I don't want to say they train us to forget how to be like a kid, but Stan Lee was the guy who really opened my eyes up for creativity, but I was part of the Andy Warhol legacy. My art is pop art, so my artwork that was in Friends became part of popular culture.
Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. I'm very excited to welcome a special guest, pop art icon, Burton Morris. Welcome to the studio, Burton.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
And just to give the audience a little bit of context, we met through a mutual friend, Greg Bennett.
Another great guy.
Yes, an amazing man. The author of I Can Make Caffeine Nervous. What a fantastic book. Yes, yes. Greg's so great. He's actually out in Paris right now educating 40 young entrepreneurs on business and entrepreneurship.
Really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg was we met through an art gallery, and he was interested in my artwork, and we met through his love of art. So really, yes, nice to connect and so nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and making the trip. We're out here in LA, and you actually live out in Santa Monica.
Right. So I have an art studio in Santa Monica. I've been out in LA for 22 years now. I love it here. I like the weather, the people, and I can't say enough good words about California.
Yeah. Yeah, you really enjoy it. And you were originally from Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and another great place. I was just there last week. It's funny to see where life takes you. Since I was a kid, I've loved art, and I'm known as a pop artist. And since I was a child, I love cartoons and comic books.
We have this in common.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting for me to chat with you today, because as a young kid, as I was telling you off camera, I was very much into drawing from the time I was a very young man. And I taught myself by tracing and coloring books and Disney books.
That's exactly what I did.
I was
so funny.
I loved comics, and all of them. So it didn't matter what the genre was. I was into comic books because I liked to read them and then draw them. And then I would develop my own board games. I would take cardboard boxes and cut them up and then make my own pieces and draw the characters and pull characters from crossover comics.
Yeah, sure,
right?
sure.
And then develop my own books.
Very similar to what I did. Very similar. And then you ended up, did you decide to, when did you veer from the comic art world?
Well, really, I started taking art classes. I did a lot of my own stuff for Christmas and birthdays and various holidays. My mom would always get me things like drafting tables and pencils and art supplies. And then in high school, they offered commercial art at a high school. They didn't offer commercial art at my high school, so I had to divvy up the day between two schools,
right?
Because they would just transport me to the other school, so I could take commercial art. Because around 10th grade, I became very passionate about commercial art,
right?
And I was very excited to take those classes. And it was sometime around at that point, I also started getting involved in volunteering with people with diverse needs. And so while I always will have a passion for art, life didn't take me down that career trajectory. So I ended up getting into the mental health field at a very early age, 18, 19 years old. But the art has always been a part of me. And now I get to explore my creative side with my podcast,
right,
studio. So,
and you can always draw, paint. Yeah, I always say there's no right or wrong in art. And I think that's important for people to know, because no matter what age you're, everyone can draw. It doesn't matter, you're a baby to, you're 90 years old. There's no right or wrong time to start being an artist, because we're all creative. And I know so many people are like, oh, I can't draw, I can't create. And I'm like, you can draw circles and it's being creative. You can, tear paper and it's creative. So I always try to let people understand that, no matter what age, there's no time period where you can't be an artist.
Yeah, no limitations.
Right. Exactly.
I find myself creating art even when I'm doing crosshatch.
Yeah.
Like I'll just be sitting down or crosshatch.
Of course, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in today's world is so interesting because kids, my daughters, they'll take the iPad and just, they can play with different brushes or experiment with their fingers, finger paint basically on the iPad. It's amazing. It's incredible.
And now you're a dad, you're a girl dad.
I'm a girl dad. I have 3 daughters, and I love them so much. It's like the best form of something I never expected, as one day you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I have an incredible wife. My wife, Sarah, runs our business. So you can understand, my wife runs a business, 3 daughters, ages from 9 to 16, and they're all creative. They all love art. One's a passionate singer, one's a designer, one, is drawing all the time. And it's amazing to see, how these kids that have been brought up by me, where they're going, what they're seeing. I call myself, we're the house that has all the colorful art in the house. It changes all the time.
I can imagine your home.
It's funny because it's a mid-century modern home, but when you see my art, lights it up with color, and that's what I like the most, because I painted 3 superhero women. I did a Supergirl, Batgirl, and Wonder Woman, each one representing my daughters. And when you see them as a triptych hanging, it's so powerful. And it makes me really proud, because honestly, I grew up, my father was an accountant and my mom a teacher, so they liked art, but we had just a few clippings of art hanging up, but they weren't these collectors. And so I was fortunate that we lived in Pittsburgh at the time, by a museum, the Carnegie Museum, and I used to go there for classes as well, but my mom and dad used to take me there to just see art on the walls, and it was that's really where I gathered my love of art.
Yeah, amazing. And what are your girls' names?
So Ava's my oldest, and she's in 11th grade. Bella is now graduating 6th grade, and Sunny, named after my dad, Sunny, was appropriate for living in LA. And she's in 3rd grade. So it's amazing to see through their eyes, as they grow, how they foster their creativity and where their passions lie. And I do feel we're giving Sarah, my wife, a unique opportunity to explore their love of art. My wife was also a great singer and actress. And so, you could see how her inspiration and my inspiration as an artist, how that they soak it in. It's so fun.
And your greatest creations became
they're my greatest creations. I never knew that, and I'm proud of them. And it's so interesting because you never know where life, where you living here in LA, and then one day you're a dad of 3 daughters.
Never know where life's gonna take you.
Exactly.
And you've had such an amazing career. It's just, again, just over the moon to be sitting here talking to you, because I think you're so amazing, and I'm sure your daughters and your wife are very proud of you. I mean, I'm proud of them.
One thing I've done with my art is we've raised millions of dollars all around the world for charities. We try to give back through my art, and that's something I'm so proud of, because art inspires. My goal with my art was always to inspire and foster creativity with young minds, but also to get people to think differently, but also in a positive way. My art, through the nature of the work I do, was always very positive. And I always said, as an artist, it's okay to be positive, because there's so much negativity in the world. Why not, have a positive spin on what you create? And so I work in series. I love to explore. I'm constantly thinking of new ideas. There's never a day that goes by where I'm not, my mind's jumbled in so many ways. But you're always, as an artist, you're always thinking and looking at things in a unique way.
And your creative well has not run dry. And what I love about your art too is it's happy.
Thank you.
Beautiful gifts that you brought to share with me, and also our mutual friend Greg gifted me a piece of your artwork, which I'm just over the moon about. I'll display it proudly in my studio, and I appreciate your art because it brings happiness and joy.
Well, that's what I feel. That's something I wanted to give back. We were talking about this. So I was a friend of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
And
I designed their 25th anniversary. And growing up in Pittsburgh, he lived down the street from where I lived. And so we got to know each other. And, when you were with Fred Rogers, you felt like you're in the presence of this, a higher, like, level person. I mean, he was like just such a fascinating man. He was an ordained Presbyterian minister, but also just the biggest heart. And I always felt that, I grew up treating everyone the same. I don't care, and I feel that I put that into my art where we are all the same. We're human beings, and, how to express love and creativity. And I wanted to create a look, or through my art, something that is universal.
Yeah.
So that I don't care what age you are, where you're from. And I've shown all over the world. And it's interesting to see the response of people in Asia, Europe, Africa, wherever. But to my art, it has a similar feeling. It's a positive response.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think, Fred's message was always to, bring joy and love. And I think that's something I've tried to do in my art. Not everything is going to be that way, but, it's just the world I see, try to look at in a more positive way.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and it really shines through. It truly does.
Thank you.
I find it just therapeutic looking at your artwork. And
well, I think art is therapeutic.
Yeah, it is.
It's important. And again, to express yourself through art. And I do a lot of talks to children, to adults, but that art is a therapeutic way. I guess someone said to me, well, when you're drawing or you're creating, you sort of get in your zone. And I could spend hours just in that zone. And when you're in it, it's amazing because, you're really, just kind of, you never know where or why this creativity is coming from.
But time just goes.
Time goes, exactly.
It was like, I can teleport back to when I was in my preteens, and it would be like, I'd like to stay up all night drawing in my bedroom.
It's so funny.
Music on, and I would and then all of a sudden it'd be 5 a.m. And,
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're really into a project, I will say I could stay up for days, like literally. I know Sarah will say to me, how late were you up last night? Because everyone's like, when do you work? And you work all different hours. There's no set. I'm trying now to get to bed at a better time. But, a lot of times after the kids are in bed, I'll stay up and work a couple hours just because I could focus at my house when it's quiet. But I guess, as a creative person, you're always working, your mind's always thinking.
And whenever creativity comes, it comes.
It does.
So oftentimes when I'm, most people this doesn't resonate with, but I wake up at 2 a.m. I, for some odd reason, had got on the cycle of going to bed at 7 p.m., 6:30, 7 p.m., but I get up at 2, and then ideas come to me, right? My creative juices start flowing, and I always write things down. And these things don't come to me during the day when business is happening.
You never know.
Employees are talking to you and the world is heading at you. Of course, when everyone else is sleeping, that's when the things come, and I write them down. And then I try to bring, those things to fruition, and one idea leads to the next. And that's been my process.
That's amazing. And again, everyone's process is different. You never know. I always try to instill in my kids, my friends, anyone around me, if you believe in yourself, you can achieve anything.
Yeah.
Like I truly, my career path has been there's no set career path for an artist. Every artist has a different story.
Yeah.
And where and how we get there is so interesting. And I know mine is one way, and I've been fortunate to have achieved so much of what I've always believed in.
Yeah.
And I have so much more I want to do.
Yeah. And I love your points about just the art bringing joy and touching everybody, because as I mentioned to you off camera, I work with young folks on the autism spectrum, and I would open up my studio at various times and have an art therapist come, and we would provide hours of artwork for art therapy.
That's amazing.
For folks on the autism spectrum. And a lot of times it was one of my greatest experiences with that was one of the young men I support under my nonprofit. He could be challenging sometimes on the behavioral side of things. Things would trigger him.
Sure.
And his mom didn't think that he would come and sit for longer than 5 minutes. And I invited her to come out. She drove an hour out. I said, let's just give it a try. If he wants to get up and pace and stim, he can do that. The building is big, and I'm providing treats, and a lot of folks want to come and socialize and have some treats, and enjoy the space. I said, if he wants to participate in the art, fantastic. If not, that's fine too. And so she drove out an hour, and I had him come, and we just had one of his roommates join him, and a couple of support professionals enjoyed the space as well. And he sat down for over 3 hours, never got up.
Wow.
And I set the tone with some nice healing music on the TV with the fish tank and some swimming and stuff. And the art therapist brought some model magic out, which is similar to Play-Doh. Yep. Now they call it model magic. And he really just enjoyed himself for 3 straight hours with a smile on his face the whole time.
That's amazing.
So it was amazing.
That's great. Because art brings joy. It's just like you said, if you took out like a Play-Doh or just, using our hands, it's amazing. What we, as adults, it's almost like I don't want to say they train us to forget how to be like a kid. And I'm always trying to say to adults, if you ask a child, and I could ask my kids up till like 9 or 10, hey, draw the world, draw this, draw a boat, sailing in the ocean, they'd start drawing. But as adults, we're like, oh, I'm afraid to not make the boat look that way. It's amazing. And it's a shame, because we trying to hang on to that creativity and not lose that passion or the idea that, you can create anything and not be afraid.
Yeah. As children, we're less inhibited, and it just comes out the way it comes out.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
If I have a group of, second graders, and you have them in a room, say, we're going to paint a rocket ship flying off, wherever. And the kids can do that immediately, or draw a horse running through and adults cannot seem to, they're worried about, is the horse hoofed right? But I can't do the proportion.
Yes.
And kids are just free to do and be creative.
I love that. And so I love all the stories you've shared too. And one of the other amazing connections you have is the infamous Stan Lee.
Oh, yes. Stan was I always said that there's a few people in life that I've been fortunate enough to meet who've changed the world. And I used to go to lunch with Stan. So Stan was probably, so when I was 3 years old, I broke my femur bone falling off monkey bars in Pittsburgh. And I was playing Tarzan. So you can imagine. So at 3, I was already playing like I thought I was Tarzan.
Yes.
I fell, broke your femur bone, which is your longest bone in your body. At that time, they put you in a body cast. So literally, I had this cast on. My dad would carry me around, and you couldn't move. So I could only move the top part of my body. So my parents would give me pencils, crayons, and paper to draw on, and they'd sit me by the TV, black and white TV, I imagine, and shows would come on, but I loved at the time. There's Batman, Spider-Man. And so Stan Lee, who created Spider-Man and Marvel Comics, I just was drawn to that. So Stan was always my hero. Being a comic book lover, I would try to emulate the comic book art. I wanted to be a comic book artist as a kid, and I did exactly what you did. That was I would dream. Buy these, get these comic books, whatever it was. I didn't care, and I would try to draw it. That's what taught me drawing. And then I went to art classes at the Carnegie Museums. I was lucky enough to it kind of all came together that way. But my father, who was an accountant, and my mom was a teacher, he's like, well, how you can make a living being an artist? I mean, this kid, me, was always drawing. But they're like, I love sports. I like, I was reading all the time. But they're like, how would you make a living being an artist? So I went to Carnegie Mellon University when I graduated high school in graphic design. And I recently spoke there last week, actually, at Carnegie Mellon, going back to school, at this point, and, seeing what they're doing. It's amazing where the world's full circle. Yeah. So, long story short, Stan Lee still was I attribute him for his creations that spawned my imagination to do what I do, because these superheroes to me were larger than life. Like here's a King Kong, for instance, that I drew. I naturally love nostalgia. I love certain things just hit me. And it's like, these characters, just, imagination and creativity. And it was exciting. So that's kind of what started me as an artist. And there's a 16th century engraver artist, Albrecht Dürer. And Dürer, if you look him up, he was this incredible artist, but he did line arts and etchings. He was known for etchings. So my style derives itself. These little marks here are little etching marks that I never knew how to do an etching like Dürer. I used to study these as a kid, but I would start drawing these hatch marks, like you said, in pen and ink. And so I was a good drawer. Painting came much later, but I could draw. I was always drawing and doodling. So I would spend hours on tiny drawings. And over time, I spent a year on, or 2 years on, one drawing that was tiny little, pictures of lots of things going on.
Yeah.
But as I went and studied graphic design at Carnegie Mellon to learn about logos and how to create simplified shapes. That's why in my art, you see very simplified objects. And the colors I typically use were cartoon colors. So you could see the comic book influence of my art with the Albrecht Dürer inside there. So it's a hodgepodge of some of this. But Stan Lee was the guy who really opened my eyes up for creativity. So in 2004, 2005, I was introduced to Stan. He was doing a book signing. My wife was able to, I was working the Academy Awards, and Stan met with me. I gave him one of the Academy Awards posters, and he was blown away the fact that I was influenced by him as a kid. When I was 10 years old, I drew a picture of Stan. Just had it. I still had it, and I gave it to him as a gift. And so we developed a friendship. So I used to go to lunch with Stan, and he realized we had so much in common as creative people, but he was such a larger than life individual. Another one who, truly changed the life of, the world, billions of people because of his creations.
And I saw an amazing picture of Stan Lee sitting at his desk with your artwork behind
the Silver Surfer. Yeah. So Stan commissioned me to create the Silver Surfer. It was a la Jack Kirby, and the other artist, I said, the illustrator who was like Stan's partner, who created all these characters, the Avengers and, Hulk, and just, I look back, they're all my heroes, but Jack Kirby was another. I called him Mozart because he could just sit down and draw. The guy was another genius. So, these two geniuses came together to create these ideas, but, Silver Surfer, I did an interpretation of the Jack Kirby Silver Surfer in my style.
Yeah.
And then Stan hung it behind his desk. And that became, for me personally, the comic book collectors know that. Because whenever you go into Stan's office in Beverly Hills, it was like a mecca to, there he is, like Stan Lee. And then there was my Silver Surfer right behind him.
Beautiful.
So, thank you.
It's beautiful. And so all these connections, all these amazing friendships that you have, and all the amazing work you've done, you've worked with the Academy Awards, Absolut Vodka.
Right.
Campaigns.
I've been, Absolut was the start. When people ask me, like, how did your art career start? I was always drawing, and, I was an art director in advertising right out of college. I directed commercials for McDonald's food, Taster Choice coffees, but I was always drawing. And then I did illustrations for Pittsburgh magazine, where I was living at the time. And I would draw these little icons, a popcorn box, a coffee cup. It was kind of representing what was going on in today's culture. I noticed like Starbucks were popping up everywhere back in the, mid 80s. And so I would draw little icons or symbols that would represent what was going on. So then, I realized that I loved to draw, and I I'll never forget going to the Carnegie Museums and being like, well, I love to do paintings like Warhol or Haring. I love the pop art movement.
Yeah.
And so I started taking my icons or symbols, and my idea was to take these little symbols and make them large, change colors, but create a brand, like brand this idea and build on that. So my first show was in Pittsburgh, and then it kind of evolved where I started painting and realized I could maybe make a living at this and also create a career. And my paintings started getting took notice from collectors and, corporations and eventually museums. But Absolut Vodka back in the 80s or early 90s, Andy Warhol created the very first Absolut Vodka ad. People don't always know this, but it was the Absolut Warhol. And that was a big deal at the time because he then brought on Armand. He brought in Keith Haring. He brought in some great Kenny Scharf to create the Absolut Vodka ads. And the Absolut ads were like a big deal.
Yeah.
So I was brought in 1992. I was selected out of, at that time, they said 1,000 people to be the Absolut Pennsylvania artist. So I created the vision of the Absolut bottle, but I was part of the Andy Warhol legacy.
Yeah.
So for me as an, starting out as an artist, that was a huge hit because it was featured in Time Magazine and USA Today, and I was part of that legacy. So then in 1994, Friends happened to come along. But again, so I was peddling my art, I said, and I took notice. There was a art collectors as well as art dealers, and I was brought into the New York art scene. And so I started showing in Soho, then I started showing in Los Angeles. Then my art was I showed in Hong Kong, and so it started this look, this style I was building.
Yeah.
My goal is to create a style that I would be known for, and it started evolving. And during that time, the TV show Friends was just beginning in 1994. And this is just by fluke. I had a t-shirt company. I was putting my art on t-shirts. David Schwimmer on the third episode of Friends in 1994 wore is called the Big Hitter baseball t-shirt on the show. And so at that time, someone called me up and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm watching this show called Friends, and there's some guy wearing your t-shirt." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I was living in Pittsburgh, and I called my sister, who's living in California. I have one sister, my sister Stacy, and I say, "Could you watch a show called Friends?" So she turns it on 3 hours later and she starts screaming, "Oh my God, this guy's wearing your t-shirt. That's your shirt."
Yeah.
I'm like, where did they get it? So I call up Warner Brothers the next day, and I'm like, "Hey, my name is Burton Morris. One of your actors is wearing my t-shirt on the show called Friends." They actually got Kevin Bright, who created the show, on the phone. And he's like, "I know that shirt. That's cool. I like that art." So he's like, "Are you ever out in LA?" And I was actually going to visit my sister 2 weeks later. So he's like, "Why don't you come out and come by the set? I'll introduce you to everyone. You could watch a taping." So I'm like, "Sure." So I go out. We see a taping. I get to hang out with the cast. We're all around the same age, and I'm like, "Good luck." I'll never forget Courtney Cox, Jennifer Aniston, Matthew Perry. We're all talking, and I go, "Well, I hope the show goes well." And they go, "We think it will. It feels like it's going to do good." And I'm like, "Well, I hope to see you again soon." The show keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And then every season they would call me, the set director and the Kevin Bright would call me to say, "Hey, what do you have next? Could we use this in Central Perk?" So I start watching the show. Show starts taking off. So every season for 10 seasons, they use my art on the show. And apparently we figured out that my art roughly was in over 130 episodes.
Wow.
Over the season. But again, no one knew that show was going to become what it did. So for me personally, what was great about it was as the show was building and my art was on this and the backdrop of like Central Perk or in the apartment, I started getting known as the artist of Friends. And it was, for me personally, Friends, as we look back now 30 years later, it became part of popular culture. My art is pop art. So my artwork that was in Friends became part of popular culture. So like this coffee cup or the King Kong or Liberty or popcorn box all became, central with that show. So, whenever I'd have a show in Asia or Europe, they're like, "Hey, that's the guy from Friends." And it was very cool. And so all the cast members of Friends have my art. Marta Kopp and David Crane, they all have my artwork. But what was cool was, wherever I go, Friends really just became a phenomenon. I mean, no one would have known it became so big. And I knew it was when I really had something here it was cool to be part of when Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston came to my gallery in Los Angeles, and they had to lock the doors because of paparazzi. It was crazy, to see the response of these, how big they were, the celebrities. And it was nice to have that support. And so no matter what I've done all these years, no matter, Academy Awards, Olympics, or, any of the World Cup, Friends is still the number one thing that people will know me for. And I never knew that, who would have known that 30 years later, the show is still going stronger than ever. And there's a whole new generation of, kids watching it. So it's cool for me personally to see that the art has still resonated and stayed positive and true, with Friends.
It's timeless. I think your art is timeless.
Thank you.
And very much so Friends too. And both are iconic, your artwork and Friends. And what a great combination.
Well, now they're opening a Central Perk in Times Square, and I'm going there December 5th, which is so interesting that they are opening a big Central Perk right in the heart of Times Square. And it's great because they opened one in Boston, an actual Central Perk coffee shop. And so they commissioned my art for that. And now we're doing another one with a huge 12 by 12 foot King Kong, you'll see, and a coffee cup and Liberty. So it's fun. It's cool to see that this is still resonating and building, years later.
And you just had a write-up in People magazine this week, actually.
They mentioned me exactly about Central Perk, and we're, for me personally as an artist, we talk about someone's career path and how you build. And I've had a very unique path as an artist, because I love my work is commercial, but it's pop, yet it's serious, yet it's fun, but it also has a positive message to it.
Absolutely.
And I've always believed, that there's nothing, again, like wrong about being positive with your work, but it's fun. It makes people happy. And I think that's part of, what I love about what I do.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite pieces? I mean, you've done so much.
Well, I've done, through the years, people are like, well, how many coffee cups have you produced, or popcorn boxes? And I keep evolving. I work in series. So my icons were the first stepping stone of my career. And over that time, I've worked in different ways to create portraits or interiors, and we all kind of, take from other artists. You kind of evolve in your series. Right now, I'm actually working on an abstract series. I've been working on the last 10 years. I've noticed I've been working a little differently because I'm enjoying, spray painting, silk screening, trying new techniques.
Yeah.
And that's the way the world has with the evolution of AI now and computers and just everything. As an artist, I'm constantly trying to think about ways to stay current, but also evolve and mature. But my mind, I see myself taking icons and repeating them in different ways. As by the way, stepping back, Andy Warhol, who was from Pittsburgh, went to Carnegie Mellon also, and opened up the doors for me as a pop artist. I embraced what he has done and for the world, but because I couldn't do what I did without him. But now I'm trying to evolve my art in a new way, like a contemporary form of pop art.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that I love abstraction, and I always liked abstract art. I mean, it's funny because I do appreciate, probably like yourself, all forms of art.
Yeah.
I'm not just a pop art guy. I loved, as a kid, I could study the Renaissance, or I loved Norman Rockwell, or I liked Diebenkorn, or I liked, whomever. It's just, I pretty much appreciate all forms of art.
Yeah.
So I noticed that some of my latest series of artworks are getting much more abstract, less precise, and I'm enjoying the mistakes. And it's really cool what's coming out.
Yeah.
And
You're tapping back into your childhood.
And sculpture is another area that I'm working on. So I've been the last 5 years evolving into large scale sculpture, but that's meaning when I'm working with a structural engineer, or, I can design ideas, but how to build that concept. And in the last 2 years, I created this art for a collector of mine in Florida, it's 1,000-pound butterfly, but it's wild when you work with, scale and metal and fabrication, and it's amazing what you get involved in. So I think that's where my mind is going, where I'm headed with my work, but still keeping the core essence of the icons I did. So now I'm taking these kernels, these popcorn kernels from the popcorn box that I've been known for creating, even the abstraction of, and these are kernels, but then evolving the colors into new forms and new ways of working, even black and white on white, black on black. So it's so cool to see this. And I see that, as I'm maturing, in my ideas, it's just constantly evolving and changing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love your style too. And I think, like you mentioned, there's inspiration from every form of art.
Exactly. Because I never felt I should be look, I'm locked into a style that people know me for, but just like any artist, you have to keep evolving and changing. And look, I mean, when I studied the great masters, or even the the new generation of artists, they're incredible. Some of these young artists are just doing these incredible new forms of art. Embracing technology. I mean, look what's gone on with the NFTs even that they were making, or there's these fascinating artists who are just evolving with all the new technology. So I'm constantly trying to figure out where I can be part of that as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think, when we were talking a little bit off camera too, you mentioned, and at the beginning of the episode, you mentioned when you were tapping into your gifts as a child and you wanted to evolve into an artist, your father asked you, well, how are you going to make any money out of this?
Yeah, I still feel my dad saying that to me because, look, being an artist, I tell people, you want to be an artist, it better be your passion. And because everyone has a different situation, but I mean that it has to be, I live and breathe it every day. That's just who I am.
Yep.
And obviously life throws you curves. Having a family, it changes your thinking, things you do, how much time you have, everything.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask because I think in an effort to inspire other young artists that might listen to this episode and their family might be saying the same thing to them. Well, how are you going to make any money out of that? Because you hear it all the time.
Right.
I think your words are inspiring. And is there anything that you can offer?
Sure. So I get this all the time. I try to help out. I try to help out as many, in today's world, with Instagram, Facebook, all the marketing from all over the world. We have questions people ask me, a lot of teachers, which is really, for me, I'm so happy about, because teachers will take my art and teach their kids with my art style, because whether it's a heart or a coffee cup or a popcorn box, it's just simple, yet kids can relate to it. And my words, I see the art, I see creativity evolving. So what we couldn't do last year, I mean, I'm blown away now with what's going on in technology, because your ideas now, you can, my favorite is, people are like, oh my God, Bert, now with AI, I can make a Burton Morris, coffee cup, and here it is. I go, but Burton Morris didn't do it, did he? So, yeah, that's the one thing I tell. But, it's, I think that there's so many new fields that a creative person can enter into now. And it's probably going to be with technology. Your typical painter, that's evolving too, the way they're working, the way they're creating. And I think it's limitless. And again, all of us know that we never know where the future lies, but I'm hoping that I could keep creating till I'm 100 and then still create from then.
Yeah.
So
I think your well is never going to run dry.
Yeah. I think as a creative person, look, I go through a lot of creative blocks. People say, do you ever, lose or can't think of ideas? I think it's more, I'm always thinking about new series of artworks, and yet, ways I could influence or create things that will get people excited.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Thank
Where
you.
can people buy your art?
Oh, so I show in galleries. So typically I'll usually have 2 to 3 gallery shows every year. My art, if people are interested, of course, they can look up my website. We have a collection site, burtonmorris.com. And and that's another way we sell prints. Originals usually are purchased through dealers or galleries, or so that's. But as a creative person, again, going back, speaking about like how to purchase art. There's no how can I say, most artists sell through galleries.
Okay.
I've been lucky to see my art collected by museums, galleries. I'm happy when I see it on a Perrier bottle or on a watch like this right here.
I love the watch.
Thank you. The watch this is a hand painted dial, and there were only a couple made, and the company is Kobold Watch Company, which are based out of Pittsburgh. And like another one of these watches is Bill Clinton.
And it's got the popcorn.
Yes. So I painted the popcorn, and then the watch was built around the dial, which is really cool.
I love it.
To work on. Something I'm proud of. I worked with the Obamas for 8 years, creating artwork for dignitaries as gifts from the United States. So, I've seen my art, again, from whether it's from kids to adults to CEOs to celebrities to, presidents. It's cool to see. Like, I never would have dreamed, this would be possible. Through pop art and for what I do. But, my vision, someone said to me, what haven't you done? So I said, eventually I want to get art on a rocket ship, because I said, we've painted cars, we've done like the airplane tails, but how about a rocket ship now? That's what they're doing in space is wild. So,
and also too, you have some prints for Coco Chanel.
Oh, I've done, so Chanel Corporation has been an advocate for my art, but they've collected my art over the years. So as an artist, you can paint one of a kind, hand painted original paintings, let's say Mickey Mouse or Coco Chanel bottle or Coca-Cola bottle, for instance. And Coke has been a big advocate of my art as well over the years. I've had shows at the World of Coca-Cola Museum. The CEO of Coca-Cola has my work hanging in his office, James Quincy, and Coke has purchased a number of my artworks. But I can do these one-of-a-kind, when I do Superman or Batman, I can do a one-of-a-kind painting. If I was to do a mass production of prints, obviously I'd work with them to do like a royalty base. You learn that through the trade.
Right.
So when people go, how are you allowed to paint, a cereal box? You can take the character and do one-of-a-kind paintings. So I'm known for my one-of-a-kind hand-painted works. But then over the years, I, as an artist, it's fun to take pop culture, like Warhol did the soup cans. Now, when you look back at an Andy Warhol, he did thousands of soup cans, Campbell Soup. Today, he couldn't have just done that without Campbell Soup's permission.
Right.
But back then, the laws were a little different, but he made it famous. So, I mean, look, as an artist, you have to know that, like, I have clients of every caliber. So they love Trump, hate Trump, love Obama, hate him. And you're like, look, I'm just making art.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be and look, yes, women's rights, not women's, this one like that. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so, Obama's apparently, they brought me in for a couple things, and I would create art for dignitaries that they would give from the United States. You couldn't even publicize it because the United States has policies about when you're allowed. And then I created a presidential guitar that Michelle and Barack gave to Pete Rouse, the senior advisor, who brought the Grateful Dead in to campaign for him early on when he was campaigning. Separately, though, I was brought in as a challenge on the third season of The Apprentice with another pop artist. So I met Trump, has my popcorn, loved me, was like larger than life. And it's funny because I got to see him as the, art of the deal, real estate Trump guy. Then Clinton's, have a watch. The Carter Center has Jimmy Carter. I donated a big piece of art for his center. And so I have Carter holding my art. And then the Bush family, so it's cool to see that my
cause everybody
touched presidents, dignitaries, with celebrities with the Academy Awards. My joke was, I think I met the whole world through that.
Yeah.
And you never know who. Art is subjective, so what I like, you might not like, or what this one, but that's what makes.
But it really brings community together.
Yeah,
truly.
Yes, art does.
Yeah,
and my art, even if you don't like it, I think it still makes you feel good. Generally, Most of it. I've gotten into series where certain series are a little more thought provoking. Have I done a lot of political art? Most of my art is very more inspiring, more like,
but it brings
it's
political
simple,
groups
but it does bring,
connects.
it's crazy.
It's unification.
Yes. And you never know who thinks what, but the general idea is that
opposing sides have the same piece of art.
Right.
Have the same piece of art.
Exactly. That's the funny part.
Yeah.
That is what's amazing.
So unique.
Yeah, because you just never know. I mean, they might hate this one or this one, but some of them own the same thing. It's very funny.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to ask too, how did the Academy Awards come about for you?
Oh yeah, so that was interesting. So I was having shows. I was showing at a gallery in West Hollywood here in LA, and I showed in one gallery for about 15, 20 years. And the president at the time, Bruce Davis of the Academy Awards in 2002, let's say, he saw my art. He's like, wow, this is cool. And he wanted to bring about a younger audience to watch the Academy Awards. So he thought, well, hey, maybe we could hire this guy, this artist, Burton Morris, to create the look, the poster, basically the image that we'd use all over. And that was like unheard of because they had never done that before.
Yeah.
So he proposed it to the board. Somehow they said this would never happen again. He passed it through the board. Like there's 30 board members. And then he said, would you be interested in creating the look for that year that would be on everything? It was like everywhere. It was on, 100 feet tall on the buildings. It was on every banner, when you walk down the red carpet, there was the art. So I gave them like 12 different images and they went for it and that, took off. And so they brought me in, I did a signing, I walked the red carpet.
Wow.
I remember walking with Sting, Jim Carrey, Johnny Depp, Angelina Jolie, I had Clint Eastwood, Sean Connery. It was nuts. Like, you're surrounded. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Because, I still living in Pittsburgh at the time.
Yeah.
And so then I'll never forget signing my art to every one of these people.
Wow.
And there's my joke was like, Clint Eastwood, he's like, well, could you sign that to so-and-so? And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So Oprah, and so then, that was fascinating to me. It really was a huge highlight.
Yeah.
And, it shows you the power of Hollywood. It really was amazing. So it was cool to see my art within that context. And then through the years, I love working on events. So whether it's a US Open, a FIFA World Cup, I'm talking now with LA28, the Olympics. So I want to do more. Like in 2004, I was brought in to create the idea, the museum show at the IOC in Lausanne, Switzerland, the look of the game. So did that. So I've been fortunate to see my work go beyond canvas. That's a good way I put it.
Yeah.
And I work with Scotch and Soda on a whole line of clothing and activewear, and I'm hoping to build a brand as well. That's my goal.
I'm excited.
You'll
definitely have
sir.
Me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So,
and I'm so inspired by your artwork. I'm so blessed to have you here today. And I appreciate these.
I hope you like the book.
We've got this beautiful Friends book here with all the artwork. And I remember seeing a picture of, I want to say it was Matthew Perry with a coffee cup.
Yeah, so
high.
Yes, so you're right. So Matthew Perry, he was a great guy. All the cast members, like I said, when I met them, none of them knew how big they would become.
Right.
When I met Courtney Cox, she was dating Michael Keaton at the time, and he was from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget us trading stories about Pittsburgh but Matthew Perry wore a lot of, at the time, I also came out with neckties. So guys were wearing ties more at that time. So he would wear all these colorful neckties.
They were wide too. So
Yes.
I remember the art displayed the art so well.
Yes. It was brilliant. And he would wear t-shirts of mine. Between the neckties, t-shirts and artwork, it was a nice show to be affiliated with.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Cool. And so iconic. And it's been such an honor and a pleasure to talk.
Thanks.
You too. Can anyone find the book, the Burton Morris
the
book?
catalog?
Yeah.
Well, so the catalog, this was like a gallery catalog, so it's not for sale, but we are working on a book right now, like a large book.
You need a coffee table.
Yes, that's what we're working on. So the coffee people don't tell you coffee table books usually take a few years to make.
Yeah.
So that's something we're in the process of doing.
How special. I can't wait to have it because I have this great house. It's mid-century modern, like you described, and it's black and it's white and it's gray, but you can use pop art to make it really pop.
It's amazing. I try to encourage people about this. People are like, well, we don't have room on our walls for your work or this, or, or we don't. And I'm always like, rotate your art, change it. It's amazing how art will change the mood of a place. I'm a big advocate, like with Children's Hospital. I've done a lot of work for the LA Children's, Pittsburgh Children's, helping children's hospitals. But when you walk in a room and there's color, it changes the mood and the vibe. And I've always said, I remember as a kid being in the hospitals and you're scared. And, it's so important that, art can change a mood, make people happy, smile. That's something
warm, feel warm.
Exactly.
Warm, yeah.
So I encourage people to change their art. Like my house is a constant rotating, gallery, but it's fun. And I think my kids will benefit from that. And I hope that's something that they'll have and they could do that for their kids.
A memento I have from my grandmother after she passed was it's very pop art like, and I think there was a happy yellow face mug in Friends. Well, my grandma had this happy face. It was a happy face mug with the smiley face on it and the handle, and I have that at my house, at my mid-century house. And that pops, and it's a coffee mug, and it kind of goes with the Burton Morris
the whole vibe.
Yeah,
I didn't. People are like, well, did you know you were going to do this and this? I'm like, you had no idea. It just evolves. And I think, again, if you have a passion for anything, it, over time it comes out and, you hope people embrace it. And, my goal is just to truly make people happy and think differently and be positive, because
I love that. And I love your point too, your suggestion to rotate the art, because I do that between my homes and my studio. So I'll take stuff from my homes and incorporate it into my studio.
Well, it changes the mood of things. It's amazing. If you took my house being a mid-century modern, took out all the art, it's very, it's mid-century modern. If I hung typical mid-century modern art, it feels very normal. But when you put my art with the colors, it's fascinating how it brings it alive.
It does. It truly does.
Yeah, sometimes I'll take that. We have this big fireplace, and if I have this giant popcorn painting sitting in front of the fireplace. When you take it out, it deadens. It just has a whole different feel.
Yeah.
But when you put it back, it's like, wow, this lights up the whole place.
Yeah. You need a YouTube channel.
No, I know.
Really let it go.
I will. It will happen. I figure the good news is, being an artist, I have up to at least 100 or more. I have to live at least 120 and then by then they'll take the Neuralink and I'll be I told Stan Lee this. He used to say to me, and Stan was fascinating because in his 90s, he was still like a 20-year-old. He wrote every day. His mind never stopped. And I think that as a creative person, that's how you are. And so he used to say, I just want to put my mind in the Iron Man suit and fly around. And, he could have done that. I think in the way the world's going, we'll do that someday soon. Yeah. So I just have to, be out there.
I'm going to get you on the biohacking network because I'm into biohacking, peptides, and wellness.
Exactly. Yes. That's I gotta stay out there. So I said, our minds, as long as the mind stays sharp in your body, it's worth trying. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what a pleasure getting to chat with you today. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the future, too. We've got to come up with some...
You have to come to my art studio.
I would love to. It would be amazing. We'll film it and we'll post it and share with the audience.
And congrats on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have to have you and Greg both come out to Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
The flagship studio.
Gosh. Yeah. Greg's mind thinks 1,000 miles a minute. So.
I can make caffeine nervous. That's why he entitled the book that. Yes.
I love it.
True.
That would be fun to do an episode with both of the two of you.
Yeah.
Because fun.
Well, he's like a marketing
genius. Yeah, both of you two geniuses. That would be an amazing episode.
I remember when I met him the first time, I'm like, his mind never stopped. He just, has ideas.
Yeah.
Big, larger than life.
I love him to pieces, and you too. And again, this has been the best day. I'm so honored, blessed to have you as a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me. Congrats on everything.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you enjoy the art.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I can't wait to display, and I really can't wait to get this coffee table book that you've got in the works.
Yes. Yeah. Give me time. Cause
Yes.
people don't realize like it just, to make a good book. And I've been, 35 years later, I'm still, I see myself evolving in my art. And, when you make a book, it feels it stops. And my joke is I have to redo my entire website. We have to update because it's like years old. So now I have to get it back up and running, and I need a whole staff of people.
Yeah.
And, people talk about that, but it's, I'm lucky that my wife, Sarah, keeps our business together. And I see the kids are, excited. I say I'll have the whole family working on this.
Yeah. Your wife is beautiful, and she's the matriarch of your empire, and it's amazing.
Very inspiring. I had the best time chatting with
Oh,
you
thank
today.
you. Thank
Fantastic.
you for having me here.
Yeah, it's such an honor. And you have an Instagram too.
Yes. It's at Burton Morris Art.
Yeah. All right, guys. Follow Burton Morris. That's a wrap.